On episode 147 of the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast, we speak to Nelson Tressler, and he's going to tell you how to overcome obstacles, achieve your goals with a positive mindset. That's right, folks. It's time to stop being the victim. Are you ready for this? All right, let's do it.
Welcome to this episode of Moving Forward Leadership. Stick around and learn how to achieve, excel, and become a leader that people willingly follow. Lead, don't boss. And now, here's the host of our show, Chief Leadership Officer, Scott McCarthy.
Yes, welcome one, welcome all to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. It is your Chief Leadership Officer, Scott McCarthy, and welcome to the podcast where we focus on the three domains of leadership. Those being leading yourself so that you can be the best leader possible, leading your team so that you can build that high-performing team that we all strive to build, and then finally lead your organization. Why? So you can drive your organizational output upwards and outwards. And here we combine my 20 years of military experience with guests like Nelson today to give you the most complete leadership podcast going. It's so great to have you here. And if you want to know more, just go to movingforwardleadership.com for all things within our ecosystem. Thanks for coming out, folks. It is great. And it's probably so relevant right now, this episode, because we're going to be talking about goal setting and achieving your goals. And Nelson, who I'll dive into in a minute, he's got a heck of a story all about overcoming adversity and, most importantly, how we can stop being a victim. And as leaders, sometimes we fall into this trap, right? We fall into the trap that, oh, woe is me. I wasn't set up for success. I didn't, the situation didn't allow for me to execute the plan I wanted, didn't enable me to go after the things that I wanted to achieve for myself. I didn't, or my team, or even the organization, the business. 2020, yes, super challenging year, but you can see the difference in mindset between some leaders and others within different organizations, and sometimes in the same organization. You can see the leaders out there who went after it, saw 2020 not as a risk, but as an opportunity. And then you can see the other ones who had that victim mindset, the ones that said, well, there's nothing I can do about this, so I'm going to do nothing anyway. We need to not succumb to the victim mindset as leaders. Why? Because it's going to take not only us down, but our people and our organization. When people start seeing the victim mindset in a leader, they start jumping ship. They start leaving. They start getting out. They stop following you because you are no longer leading, but rather you become a boss. And we know what we think about bosses here, right? It's all about lead, don't boss. So anyway, that's why I got Nelson on the show today. He has had an incredible, difficult life. I'm going to be point blank about it. But around, and we'll talk about that in the episode, hence why I'm not going to give you a huge intro about Nelson, because normally the stuff I talk about, well, this is actually the story behind everything that you're going to learn today. But ultimately, he's had a difficult, adverse life. Most people say he probably shouldn't be alive. He's lucky that he is alive. And the reality is, he's taken that. He's overcome the negative mindset. And now what he's doing is teaching people how to set goals, how to achieve goals, how to avoid this victim mindset, and how to execute relentlessly. And that's what you want to do. As a leader, you want to set those goals, you want to have that vision, and then you want to make a plan and execute on it. And that's what we expect from our people, and that's what our organizations demand from us. So that's what you're getting today. 2020 is going in the rearview mirror. There is no better time for this episode than right now, because if anything you should be doing or should have done already, your 2020 review, and you should be setting yourself up for 2021. If you haven't done that, now is the time. Anyway, folks, that's it for me. Why don't you sit back, relax, enjoy my interview with Nelson Tressler on how you can stop being a victim. Nelson, man, welcome to the podcast. So great to have you here today.
Appreciate you having me, Scott.
So I often get the guests to give a bit of background about themselves, but really it's the beginning of your story, right? And how you got to where you are today. So let's really dive into it. So why don't we hear about you and how you started off and where your journey really began, and then we can really dive deep into this conversation today.
Sure. Yeah, I've got quite the unique origin story. I mean, my mom, she became pregnant with me when she was 15 years old. And while she was pregnant with me, her father, who was the local trash collector in a small town of about 6,000 people, he went in and opened fire on two police officers, killing one and wounding another. And, he was eventually captured and brought to stand trial where he was facing the death penalty. And during that trial, my mom, who was 15, testified to the jury that the reason that her father had went in and opened fire on these police officers was the fact that the police officer who died had raped her, and she was now pregnant with his baby, who was me. And that's kind of the start of my life right there. My grandfather, my mom's testimony worked. My grandfather's first trial ended in a hung jury. The second trial, they took the death penalty off of the table, and he ended up being found guilty, and then went away to serve life in prison without the possibility of parole, where he eventually spent more than 40 years in prison and ended up dying in there, but leaving behind my mom and me. And he actually had 14 children and a wife in a small town, leaving everyone behind to kind of deal in the wake of the consequences of what he did. So that's kind of how my life started. I don't know if you want me to get any deeper into kind of where it went from there or not.
I think so, because everything I've read about you, that is, kind of compiles even more and more to where you get to where you are today and with your company. And what we'll eventually get into, which is where I'd like to get to, is goal setting and achievement and stuff like that. But I think for the audience that have a true understanding of the hardships and adversities that you face in your life, especially at a young age, a little bit more of that would be amazing.
Yeah. So, well, my mom, like I said, she had me when she was 15. Eventually, she turned 21 and started going to bars, and she met a peach of a man there who eventually became my stepfather. And, shortly after they got together, we found out that he was an alcoholic, and he physically abused me and my mom almost on a daily basis. So I had to deal with that. And eventually, it was taking a huge toll on my life. My mom eventually had 4 more children, 3 under, actually 4 under the age of 4. And because of the lifestyle that my mom and my stepfather were living, my mom would rather me stay home from school and help her with the babies. So, I missed a lot of school, and eventually, in the 4th grade, I remember the last day of school looking down at my report card and seeing who I would have for the 5th grade. And I saw that not only did I have straight Fs, but I was repeating the 4th grade. And come to find out after that, they put me into special education to try to get me help. I'd missed 60 or so days of school that year. And while I was in special ed, come to find out that I had dyslexia. I couldn't read, I couldn't write. And so school was a huge struggle for me. And eventually, one night, my stepfather was out walking home drunk from a bar, and there was somebody else who was driving home drunk from that bar, and that driver ended up hitting and killing my stepfather. And it was at this time that my mom, she has, 5 kids. She had dropped out of school in the 8th grade, so she has no education. She has no skill. She has no job, and worst of all, now she has really no hope. And it was at this time that she decided that she was going to take her own life. And my mom attempted suicide. I was 12 years old. Fortunately for us and for her, that she was not successful, but she did get sent away to an institution where they were helping her get her mind right. Whenever she came out of the hospital, she decided that she was not able to care for all of us kids by herself. So it was at that time she decided that she was going to split up the family. I was the oldest, of course, and I went to go live with my grandmother, who was the wife of my grandfather who shot and killed a police officer. And then my baby sister, who was 6 months old at the time, she went to go live with my aunt, Connie. And then my mom kept the 3 boys, my 3 brothers who were in the middle. So I went to live with my gram, which, I'm living there. She still has a few of the kids at home, of her own at home. And then she's raising some other cousins at the same time. But for the first time in my life, it was a stable household. I mean, there were no crying babies that I had to get up in the middle of the night and take care of. There was always food in the house, which was not the case at my mother's house. And even though education wasn't like a priority in our family, it was at least expected that you were going to go to school. And so for the first time, I started going to school regularly and, going to bed at a normal time and being fed on a daily basis. And eventually, I started to think to myself, what kind of life I was going to end up living. I mean, I had seen my life up to this point and realized that it sucked. It sucked, and it was not a life that I wanted to continue to live. And it definitely wasn't a life that I wanted for my eventual family. And one day when I was at school in the 7th grade, a counselor from Penn State University came and just kind of talked to the school about what you needed to do to get into college at that time. Now, at this time, I'm in special ed. I can't read. I can't write. So I mean, in my Graham's family, of the 15 kids that she had, only 2 had ever graduated from high school. None had ever even attended a college. I have 100 cousins or so at this time. None of them had ever gone to college. But I started to think to myself, you know what? If I could get a college degree, that would change the direction of my life. And, I kind of thought to myself, well, wait a minute, Nelson. I mean, you're in special ed. You can't read. You can't write. You can't spell. What are you thinking here? But, that was the only thing I could think of to change, the direction of my life. So, after that, I started to pay attention in school. I started to, take notes as best I could. And, I didn't automatically turn into an A student, by no means. I was a C student, with a B sprinkled here or there, but, I had one good thing going for me, and I was a pretty good athlete. And so I had football, and eventually, after trying my best at school, by the end of 10th grade, I remember going into the resource room, which is, where I went for English and reading and that, and the teacher telling me that congratulations, that I had passed the exam. They tested you at the end of every year. And because of my score on that exam, I wasn't going to be in any more special ed classes after that day. So I eventually ended up going into all normal classes in 11th and 12th grade, even took a few college prep courses. And like I said, I had that one thing going for me where I had, sports, and I had one college that was willing to kind of take a risk on me to come and play football for them. And eventually I became that first person in our family to attend college. And eventually at the end of the first semester, I'm living with my gram. She makes $4,800 a year on Social Security at this time. And I got a bill for school for $1,000 at the end of the first semester. At the end of the second semester, I got a bill for $3,500. And it became very evident that I was not going to be able to afford to stay in college. And that was the time I joined the Air Force on the GI Bill. And anyhow, to make a long story short, 12 years after I made that first goal, 4 schools later, 4 years in the Air Force, getting married, having a kid, I eventually became that first person in my family to graduate from college. And, after that, that's when I became totally obsessed with goals and personal development. The fact that somebody like me, in special ed, coming from a family where no one had graduated, from barely from high school, but no one had graduated from college. If I could do that by setting that one goal and following through with it, what else could I do with my life through goals and through personal development? And that was 20 years ago. And since then, I have become obsessed with goals and personal development. I ended up going into commercial real estate. I became the top salesman worldwide for a top 5 commercial real estate firm, several times. I've had the opportunity to start more than 10 businesses, growing one of the largest privately held pet resorts in the country. I've started a daycare chain of 6 or 7 daycares. Currently operating a chain of trampoline parks / family fun centers. And I own some commercial real estate. And now I'm in the process of growing my newest venture, which is centered around personal development and goals. And it's called IGotSmarter. And it is an app that I've designed an entire program that I've developed over the last 25 years to kind of come from where I started to where I'm at, and helping other people finally achieve their life's biggest goals through personal development, and specifically on how to really achieve their life's biggest goals.
That is quite the story, my man. That's quite the background. Now, the listeners are probably wondering, like, wow, this is an incredible story. But Scott, this is a leadership podcast. And to that, I say here at Moving Forward Leadership, we focus on what I call the 3 domains of leadership. And the first one is one that really strikes here, and that is leading yourself. How can you be the best leader? And without goals, without goal setting, we just don't achieve that optimal output. And so that's my answer to that question. And now what I'm going to ask you is, with everything that you had going on growing up and all the adversity you faced, all the, the turmoil, the chaos that you went through, like in comparison, a very mundane childhood. Now with that, no one would have ever said to you, it's okay for you to be bitter, angry, have a negative mindset. How are you able to get rid of that and just focus on, the true outcome that you wanted and this positive mindset that you seem to, just ooze out of you throughout, going from being in special ed to all the way joining the Air Force and then getting your degrees to all the success that you've had now?
Yeah. Well, and you know what, you touched on it. I just wrote a book. And we actually just did the box opening ceremony this morning. And one of the things I talked about, the book's called The Unlucky Sperm Club. And, after hearing my story, I'm sure your listeners and you can see where I came up with that title. But I get asked that question all the time. They're like, Nelson, everything that happened to you, if you failed and lived a miserable life, no one would blame you. You had all the excuses to do that. And my answer to that is, you know what? I couldn't agree. I couldn't disagree anymore. The way that I look at it is I had every opportunity because of the way that I was raised, because of the situation that I was in, to live an extraordinary life. And, that's what I've chosen to do is, I had none of those expectations, but because of the situation that I was in, I had nothing. I had nothing to hold me back. I truly believe that you get to give meaning to everything that happens to you in your life. And if you get to give meaning to everything that happens to you, why on earth would you give anything a bad meaning? And, truthfully, I struggled with the situation of my birth, and I struggled with, the way that I was raised and the abuse. And I was bitter as a teenager. And I definitely felt, woe is me. But as soon as I realized, you know what, I get to choose the direction. And the subtitle of my book is, You Are Not a Victim of Your Circumstances. You are a product of your choices. And as soon as I started making those choices to say, you know what, this is the life that I want to live. This is the type of family that I want to have. This is the type of career that I want to have. I started taking responsibility for my life. And as soon as I took responsibility and kind of gave way to that victim mindset, that's when life started to turn around for me. And eventually, on the backside of that, 20 years later, after achieving that first big goal, now I can look back and say, you know what, if somebody like me, if somebody that came from the situation that I came from can do this, and I look back 20 years on that, you know what could other people do? And I think there's just a lot of people out there that don't have hope, and that they really don't realize what potential lies within them. And that's why I started this new company, IGotSmarter, and came up with this goal fulfillment program to show people that, if you take control of it, you can achieve any goal that you set your mind to, as long as you have enough time, enough focus, and enough energy.
No, that's awesome. I can't agree more with you. And I often say, it's all about focusing on where you want to be versus where you are, right? When I coach my clients, it's like, okay, it's fine, you're here, but where do you want to be, and what do we need to do to achieve how to get there? And most importantly, what are the common things? What are the things that we need to be constantly working on to get to where you're at? And stop worrying about the past. The past is the past. You can't change it. But what you can do is you can set yourself up for success to the future. So I totally agree with you.
Well, and I think another thing, Scott, is actually being able to visualize a different life. I mean,
Right.
Seeing that opportunity, and once you can see it, then you can believe it. And I think that's what happened to me, and that's what I want to do. One, with my book, The Unlucky Sperm Club, and then two, part of our program is really you realizing what true potential lies within us. And very few people in this world ever achieve just a fraction of the potential that's inside of them. And I know there's a lot of people out there that don't feel like, they can add up to where they want to be. But I think, success begets success. And with the program, IGotSmarter, you start achieving a goal here or there, and eventually you're achieving goals that you didn't even imagine you could before. And you're living a life that you wouldn't even recognize, 5 years or 10 years ago.
Right. So let's dive into your program a little bit, shall we? I'd like to talk a bit about it. I'd actually like to do a little bit of comparison, because I have my own goal setting program for moving forward leadership as well. So I'd love to see if there's some common themes and stuff. So let's hear about yours. What does it consist of? What are the components of it? And let's go from there.
Yeah, and I mean we're all dealing with the pandemic right now, and we launched the business back in last October, a year ago, called 6 Months to Success, and that business had people meeting together in groups, and then they had a goal guide, and everybody communicated through our app, real time updates whenever people were checking off their our app has a morning ritual. Well, first, sorry, let me start. We go through a self assessment first, and we teach a lot of our concepts and a lot of our philosophies that we have in the IGotSmarter program. And some of that is gratitude, having gratitude for what you already have, because chances are, if you're not grateful for what you have now, you're not going to be grateful for what you accomplish in the future. So we're teaching gratitude. Part of our program also is we use what we call an alter ego. And that alter ego is that best version of yourself, that person, that's going to make the right decision every single time. And we name our alter ego. I mean, my alter ego's name is Fred, and, Fred is perfect. He would never dream of, cheating on his diet or sleeping in on a workout or getting upset with his wife or his kids. So we use the alter ego in there. And then, annual thinking, I think, with goals, a lot of people set annual goals. And what I found over my 25 years of goal fulfillment is a lot changes in a year, and nothing could be truer than that this year. I mean, where we're sitting here, and no one could have imagined what would happen in our country and in the world with the pandemic. So annual thinking, causes a lot of people to struggle with their goals. So we have huge goals. We set big goals, but we break all of those goals down into 30-day sprints. And there's a lot of reasoning behind that. I mean, one is we can all wrap our minds around what we can accomplish in 30 days. And then there's also that sense of urgency. If you have a huge goal that's maybe a year away or 5 years away or even 10 years away, there's very little that our mind can sit down and think, okay, what can I do today to accomplish a goal that's literally going to take me 5 or 10 years from now? And there's very little that we feel like we can do. There's very little urgency. But when you take that large goal and you break that down into a 30-day sprint, what can I do in the next 30 days that is going to get me closer to that bigger goal? But that 30-day goal stands on its own. And whether that goal is, I want to weigh 185 pounds and I currently weigh 200 pounds, I might want to weigh 185 pounds at the end of the year, but maybe if I weigh 200 pounds, maybe my 30-day sprint is I want to weigh 197 pounds. And then we sit down and we come up with the way that we're going to get there. And then we have to be there in 30 days. So there's none of the leeway. There's none of it. I'm going to catch up with it next week or next month or, the end of the year, whatever. Every goal stands on its own in that 30-day sprint. And then the key to our program, and I think any goal fulfillment program, is holding ourselves accountable to what we say we're going to do. We don't have a knowledge problem when it comes to achieving our goals. What we have is an execution problem. And you probably have seen this with your clients, is they know what they need to do. And if they don't know what they need to do, they can type it into Google and they'll have 5 million, results in less than a second. So knowledge is very rarely the problem when it comes to achieving your goals. It's a matter of executing on what you need to do. And what we do in the IGotSmarter program is through our app, we allow our users to invite a success partner. And what that success partner does is it helps you stay accountable to your goals, and you help them stay accountable to their goals. And through the app, you can see when your success partner is doing their morning ritual or their evening ritual, or if they've checked off a goal to do. And then all of a sudden, I need to get to work on my goals. And then you guys can encourage each other. You can communicate through the app. And we even go as far as you as success partners. Every one of our goals we associate with a a consequence, a negative consequence if we don't achieve the goal, or a positive reward if we do. So every goal that you do, you set some sort of a positive consequence. Maybe you're going to go out and buy yourself a new pair of shoes if you accomplish your goal, or if you don't, maybe you're going to dress up in a leotard and sing some song on YouTube and post it on your social media. And all of these strategies and techniques are things that our minds are all working on. Some of us run towards pleasure. Some of us run away from pain. So we've kind of attacked that at both levels. But then with your success partner, they can actually go in and say, you know what? I believe, Scott, that you're going to do this goal. And I believe so much in you that I'm going to set a negative consequence. If you don't get down to, 197 pounds by the end of the month, I'm going to dress up in, a leotard and sing karaoke and post it on my social media. Now, you might be willing to let yourself down, but hopefully you're not willing to let your success partner down. And that'll motivate you even more to get out there and to accomplish that goal. So there's a lot of those little strategies that are in our program. We definitely don't have time to go through each one of them now, but that accountability to yourself, I want to stress too, we're not holding each other accountable. You have your own goals. You have your own reason for that. I'm just here to help you stay accountable to yourself. You're not accountable to me.
Sometimes you have goals, but you know what? You have a hard time reaching them, and you just can't figure out why. Why is it that you can't achieve those things that you want to achieve? Maybe it's dedication. Maybe it's motivation. Maybe you haven't picked the right goals. So this is where I was not too long ago. And then I realized something. I've been developing the Power Goals program my entire life. And here it is now for you, where you can learn how to pick the right goals, figure out how to achieve those goals, how to stay on track, but most importantly, how to get back on track when you get off. So are you ready? Are ready to up your game and achieve those things that you've been meaning to achieve for so long now? Simply go to movingforwardleadership.com/power and learn more about the Power Goals program and achieve everything that you've been wanting to achieve. And now, back to the show. Well, I will say you don't have to worry about the leotard because I'm well under 197.
There you go.
However, one thing I'm interested to know with your program is, how do you help people make sure they pick the right goals? Because not everybody, okay, so for example, if someone said to me, or you said to me right now, oh, you should have the goal of running a marathon. That would be a horrible goal for me because I loathe the running. I'll do a 5K, a 10K if I'm extremely pushed hard. But outside of that, I don't want anything to do with running. So obviously that wouldn't be a good goal for me because I'm not really motivated. It has nothing to do with me personally. And the way I look at that is it doesn't line up with my values. And that's the first part of my program, which is very similar to something what you talked about in your the alter ego and the perfect your perfect self vision of yourself and stuff, and that's going to be really value based. So how do you make sure people pick the right goals for themselves so they don't end up in this tunnel of going down that wrong rabbit hole of digging themselves in a hole essentially?
Yeah. So part of the program of IGotSmarter is a self-assessment, and it's 8 sections of the self-assessment. And one of those sections is going through and spelling out what goals you want to accomplish in your life. And then IGotSmarter is actually an acronym. Each one of those letters reminds us of a part of our goal setting process and what we need to look at. And one of those, the very first letter is I. I lets us know that these goals, one, need to be our own goals. They can't be society's goals. They can't be your spouse's goals or your kids' goals or your boss's goals. They need to be your goal. And, I also reminds us that we're working on becoming a better individual, a better I, if you will. and becoming that better version of ourselves. But one of the things in the I Got Smarter is the R, which stands for relevance in our lives. If we seek to achieve this goal, how is it going to change our lives? How is it going to make our lives better? And so we run each goal that we're going to seek to achieve. We run it through the I Got Smarter strainer, and we're answering all of those questions for all of those goals. Another thing that we do is we only work on up to 3 goals at a time. What I found is if you do more than 3 goals, you typically will accomplish none of them. So we work on 3 goals at one time maximum. And those are the goals that are going to make the biggest difference in your life at that time. And, speaking of a marathon, that's always been on my goal list. I just wanted to do it. I wanted to check it off that bucket list. And that was one of the first goals as I developed this program and really put it into, writing it down and running it through that strainer. Running a marathon was one of the first goals that I accomplished using the I Got Smarter strategy. And I was able to do that. And I was probably further away from running a marathon, at that time in my life than I had ever been. But, using it and using that accountability and using the app and knowing that somebody was watching me every single day and I knew they were watching me, I was doing all the things that I knew I needed to do to accomplish it. And finally, I think it took me 9 months, I was able to accomplish that goal. So hopefully that answered your question.
No, it absolutely did. I really like that self-assessment thing at the beginning because it's so important to have an idea where you're at right now. You can't go anywhere if you don't know where your start point is. You just end up wandering aimlessly, right?
Well, exactly. I mean, if you don't know where you're at, you don't know what direction to go. You might know where you want to end up, but if you don't know where you're at, you don't know what direction to go. And that self-assessment is there to help people get that clarity. Another thing that I found when accomplishing goals is when you typically throw your hands up and quit is when you don't know what that next step is, when you don't know what needs to happen next to accomplish that goal. And if you don't have clarity of what your goals are, that's when you fail. That's when you kind of lose that focus and you quit because you don't know what that next step is. And part of our program is we set weekly milestones throughout that 30-day sprint. So we know exactly where we need to be is, at the end of the week 1, week 2, week 3, and then eventually accomplishing that mini goal or that goal at the end of that 30-day sprint.
No, I like that. I work on a weekly program as well where we set out what supporting actions to our goals that we need to achieve. So, for example, let's go to the weight loss one. That's easy to do, right? So, weight loss one is exercise 3 to 4 times. We'll say 4 times a week. So, when are you going to actually do that?
Yeah.
Right. When are you actually going to do that? And actually getting my clients to put that in their schedule. When are they going to meditate? When are you going to have a cheat meal?
Yeah.
So that they actually plan for these things.
Absolutely. And another thing, like when you just talked about that, another facet of our program is there's a lot, a lot of our mind is, a majority of our mind is to keep us safe and comfortable, which, that's that voice that whispers in the back of your head every time you want to start something new, don't do it. You're safe here. You're comfortable here, and one of the things that we do in our program is we word all of our goals as a positive. You're never going to say, I want to lose weight, because our mind doesn't look at that favorably. So we, for instance, with the weight, I will weigh, 185 pounds, or we don't even say I will, we will say I weigh 185 pounds, January 1st, 2021 by, watching my diet and exercising 3 days a week for 30 minutes. And the way that we do that is through that whole IGotSmarter strainer. And that will make sure that you write a goal that is positive. You're writing it as if it already happens, because one of our biggest struggles in achieving goals is, getting it past this mind that, that's kept us safe for, millennium from saber-toothed tigers. And now all of a sudden we have to kind of trick it a little bit so that we're able to grow and get out there and stretch ourselves and achieve these goals before it will step in and stop us.
Oh, that's awesome. Love it. Now, with execution, you kind of talked a little bit about it. And everything goes off the rails at some point. Everybody has a slip up. Everybody, makes a mistake, hits that wall that you discussed where like, oh, they don't know where the next step is. Like, shag it, I'm done. What are some of the great strategies out there outside of accountability? Because you talked about that one already. So outside accountability, what are some good strategies out there for people to ensure that, despite hitting these hiccups along the execution portion, how can they stay on track? How can they keep working towards achieving those goals?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, and you hit right on it, Scott. Like you hit that roadblock, you hit that one time, and we can still use the weight loss one, but you didn't follow your diet, you missed a couple days of exercise, and then typically what people will do is they'll throw up their arms and they'll say, you know what, I'll start January 1st, or I'll start at the end of the month, or I'll start there. They have that perfection mindset. And that's one of the things that we teach at IGotSmarter is we're looking for progress, not perfection. So one, we know you're going to slip up. You're going to struggle. I mean, if you didn't, you would have already achieved your goal. But two is, we structured this program to where we have those milestones. And even if we miss one milestone because we struggled, because we lost focus, we have those other milestones that we can continue to work on and get back in. So, and because we break all of our goals down into those 30-day sprints, the worst case scenario is if everything has gone off the rails, you have at least, time to start back over and refocus on those goals, no more than the next 30 days. And so one is, not having a perfection mindset, having progress and understanding that things will happen. And then two, not setting those annual goals to where you throw your hands up and you say, you know what, I'm going to start January 1st again. It's using that 30-day sprint method to where the worst case scenario is you're starting, at the next month, on top of the accountability and the partner that's there to help you to where you're not going to go days or weeks without working on your goals. Maybe you go a day or two and then your accountability partner is there for you to say, hey, let's get started again. Let's get back on, the wagon here and let's accomplish those goals. And because of that, you won't let a month or 2 months or, slip by.
Awesome. It's so crucial, the accountability partner aspect, right? And what I'd like to know from your standpoint is, what are the qualities to look for in an accountability partner for people out there who are looking to achieve some, big audacious goals right now? What kind of people should they be looking for? Should they be looking for someone just like them, or should they be looking for someone that's like opposite of them? Does your app, just hook us up with random people? Is one thing I'm wondering, or is it that you invite someone, that you invite an individual that you trust, know and trust in, or both?
Yeah. So like I talked about, we, with COVID, we had to pivot from the 6 months to success where we were meeting in groups and you were meeting with people and you rotated partners on a monthly basis. But then the IGotSmarter, we made that more app based to where you could invite one specific partner. So who you're inviting to that. So, but as far as like the best criteria for a partner, it's a no judge zone. I mean, you're not, you might feel shame because that partner's there and that's part of the mindset that helps with accountability, but that partner's not there to judge you. I mean, you're not working on their goals and they're not working on your goals. They're there to help you stay accountable to yourself. So you're looking for a cheerleader. You're looking for somebody who's understanding, but you're looking for somebody who's there, who can get you back on track whenever you do fall short for a day or two, and somebody who's willing to kind of step in there and remind you why you set these goals in the first place, and then help you get back in there and get working on them. So, I mean, if you can think of somebody who's going to be a cheerleader for you and no judging you if you do fall short, that's the type of partner that you want, and that's the type of partner that you should be for them as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That no judgment thing is definitely crucial, because last thing you want when you've slipped up, you've messed up for a whole week, you went on like a big binge of eating and not working out, is someone who's like being judgmental of you, whereas you need someone to motivate you, inspire you, lift you up, and remind you of what you said you were going to achieve. So couldn't agree more.
One more thing I just would like to add to that is there's so many people out there, and I'm sure there's people who are listening to this podcast and they're thinking, I can do this on my own. I want people to get that out of their mind, because if you could do it on your own, you would have done it already. This accountability aspect of achieving your goals that's the secret formula. That's cracking the code. Is if you get that great accountability partner and you guys work well together, that's what's going to get you over the hump and finally achieve your life's biggest goal. So if there's anything that I could kind of have people take away from them, is if you could do it by yourself, you would have already done it by yourself. So get that out of your head, get that help, get that accountability partner, and get at achieving these goals that maybe have been eluding you for, if not months and years, maybe even decades.
Wow, that's a mic drop moment right there. I'm not going to do it to my mic, but that's definitely a mic drop moment. I absolutely love that. Yeah, if you could get there by yourself, you would have been there already. Love it. Now, goal setting to me is something that's a ever ongoing process. It's not something that ends. You got to be constantly looking at it and updating and moving forward. You've alluded to it a bit, but from your standpoint, I'd love to get a little insight into how to go about, revisiting, reviewing, updating, adjusting for our goals as we continually progress along the way.
Yeah, I mean, as I said here, in my goals, I couldn't even imagine, pursuing the type of goals that I'm pursuing today, even 10 years ago, and heaven forbid, 20 years ago, right out of college. So I believe that, personal development is a lifelong pursuit. We're never, just like you said, we're never going to reach to where we have all of our goals done and we're done. And I believe not only do we owe it to ourselves, but we owe it to the world that we live in to become that best version of ourselves. And goals will help you do that. And the goals that you accomplish, today will help you become that person, because the whole thing with goal fulfillment is, first of all, you need to become the version of yourself that can accomplish that goal. And as you're pursuing goals, you're becoming a better version of yourself. And once you become that version of yourself that can accomplish that goal, then all of a sudden there's bigger goals that you can see. So goal development is something that we should pursue our entire lives. And like I said, not only do we owe it to ourselves and our family, we owe it to the world, because the goal, everything that's great out there that's happened in this world has started with a goal. And I can guarantee you it wasn't the first goal that they accomplished. It was a long chain of goals. And think about how those wonderful things have affected our lives. That's what we all have the potential to do if we continue to grow and continue to develop as a person.
Awesome. Nelson, man, this has been a fantastic and amazing conversation right from the get-go to this point. But unfortunately, all good things have to come to an end, and we're going to start winding down now. But before we wrap up here, do got a last couple of questions for you.
Sure.
And the next one being a question I asked all the guests here at Moving Forward Leadership. And that is, according to you, Nelson Tressler, what makes a great leader?
You know what? I think a great leader is, foremost is trust. I mean, if people don't trust you, they're never going to follow you. They're not going to do what you say you do. I mean, I had a situation of that. One of my businesses, the children's daycare, I actually had to take over, and it's actually part of my book, The Unlucky Sperm Club. But I had to step in there and take over a chain of children's daycares. I had no idea what I was going to do, but our operating partner had lied and cheated and everything to these employees. So trust was a huge problem. And no matter, what I said I was going to do, these people didn't trust me because they had heard it all before. And it took, months and, a year for these guys to finally realize that, hey, whatever he says he's going to do, he's actually going to do. And as soon as that trust came in, that's when this business started to turn around. So no matter what ideas I had, no matter what knowledge I had or what type of resources I had, if I couldn't get, my team to trust me, none of that other stuff meant anything.
That's awesome. Definitely trust is, as I see, a cornerstone of leadership for sure. So absolutely agree with you. And the final question of the interview is, how can people find you? How can they follow you? Feel free to give yourself and everything you're working on a shameless plug. It's all about you right now.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You could find me at nelsontressler.com. And you can also find us, the app that I've been talking about, IGotSmarter, is on the app stores. So you can find it there. IGotSmarter is all one word. And we are giving away right now, we're giving away a 30-day free trial to try IGotSmarter. So that's out there. And then you can also, I talked a little bit about the 6 Month to Success program. You can find that at 6monthstosuccess.com.
Awesome. And for the audience, as always, it is in the show notes for you. Just go to movingforwardleadership.com/147. Nelson, again, it's been fantastic being connected with you. The audience definitely got something out of this. There's no way you don't get anything out of this show today. So I truly appreciate you and your time for coming out here to discuss this with us.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on, and it was a great conversation, and I could do this all day. I really appreciate it.
All right, that's all I got for you fine folks today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the interview. And most importantly, I hope you got something out of it. And if you did, remember R squared, S squared, right? Rate and review the show so that it gets a little bit noticed, a bit more. But most importantly, I can help more people because that's what I'm here for. That's what my guests are here for, is to help more people become better leaders and not being bosses, right? So remember that. R squared, rate and review. S, share the show. Share this show with someone who you think can relate to the podcast as a whole and today's topic. And then finally, subscribe. Subscribe so that you never miss another episode. And you can do that via your podcast playing app of choice through movingforwardleadership.com/subscribe. That's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, stop bossing and start leading. Take care now.